more miles, I got to make sure I'm saying this correctly, more miles of nature and recreation trails either completed or in development than any other state in the nation. 54 total trails covering something just over 500 miles. That's terrific. And in addition to that, we have a very ambitious plan that's called the Statewide Recreational Trails Plan that's now under long range, and it is long range consideration by the Iowa Department of Transportation, that would put 2,928 miles in trails in Iowa. And I'm all for every one of them. We should be proud of all of those claims, or almost all of them, at any rate. Now I think it comes time for you in Pocahontas County to do your part. And again, I say again, my message is simply, do it. If I only had $300,000, what I could do. Or I might take the money to run, as a matter of fact. Or I might take the higher road and just buy this damn trail up here, and we could call it the Iowa Boy Trail, and we could all be home watching the Jackie story on TV tonight. But I guess what I'd really do if I had $300,000 is I'd hire a bunch of buses. And I would take everyone in Pocahontas County on 3 road trips with me. The first one would be to Panora, which I'm sure many of you drive through frequently. We'd go down to Panora and we'd stop for coffee in a new little restaurant that's opened on the east edge of Panora called the Kickstand. And one reason it's called that is because it's located adjacent to the the Raccoon River Valley Trail, one of the finest trails that we have in the state. It's about 4 years old now. It's 34 miles long, I think, and it comes from Yale on the northwest, down through Panora, Linden, Redfield, Adel, and on to Waukee, with plans eventually to tie it into the city of Des Moines. It's a paved trail. It's just wonderful. It was owned by the Central Iowa Power Co-op, and it was on an old rail line, and the Power Co-op granted a long-range usage lease on it to the conservation boards and through those counties for it to be developed and used as a recreation trail. In fact, the Central Iowa Power Co-op paved it for them. And the hitch is that if they ever need it back for a rail line again, it's their property and they can take it. And they said, we don't expect that to happen. And in the meantime, we know we're going to put it to very good use. If we could start there at the Kickstand in Panora, and if I could take you by foot or by bike or by wheelbarrow, whatever we had to do to get you down there, and we'd go down about 6 miles to Linden, little town of Linden. And we'd stop there at a little food stand that the United Methodist Church now operates in an old seed store there. And we'd have those people tell you what happens down there every time they're open, which is, right now, it's just on weekends through the nice weather. They're overwhelmed with people coming in off that trail on bicycles and on foot, and because it's a paved trail, on rollerblades, coming in there to buy their lemonade and their coffee and their chocolate chip cookies, which they have one lady in Linden that makes them every day. And what kind of people use those trails? I think they'd give you glowing reports on that. We'd go on from Linden another 6 to 7 miles on down to Redfield, and that stretch right there, I challenge any of you, is the prettiest place in Iowa. It's phenomenal to ride through there. You ride through a tunnel of trees. In most places, it's along the Raccoon River. It's gorgeous. Any of you that saw that would want that kind of trail in Pocahontas County. The second road trip we'd take would be to LaPorte City over in northeast Iowa. And LaPorte City happens to be right along the Cedar Valley Nature Trail. It used to be the Cedar Valley Railroad. It's I guess we could call that kind of the granddaddy of rail conversions in Iowa, rail to trails conversions in Iowa. The trail is 53 miles, is that right? 53 miles long, and it passes through about 8 to 10 towns between just southeast of the Waterloo metropolitan area on down to just northeast of the Cedar Rapids metropolitan area. It's a crushed rock trail. It too is gorgeous. It meanders along creeks, along nature areas. There's one portion of it that has been broken, a 2-mile stretch where an adjacent landowner won a suit and has right to that land, and he broke the trail. He's told the trail people that he knows eventually it will revert to the trail, but that's not going to happen for a while, unfortunately. Again there, you would see scenes along that trail that are among the prettiest in Iowa. The third road trip we'd take would be to an area in Wisconsin just east of the city of La Crosse, to what's known as the Sparta-Elroy Trail. And it is, in the nation, it's the granddaddy of all rails-to-trails conversion. It's one of the earliest, about a dozen years old now. It's 32 miles long. It goes from the town of Sparta through the towns of Norwalk, Wilton, Kendall, and on to Elroy. A crushed rock trail, if I didn't say that. It's gorgeous. Along its route, one of the neatest things about the Sparta-Elroy Trail is it's got 3 old rail tunnels that the trail now goes through. Two of them are about 1/8 of a mile long, and one of them is 3/4 of a mile long. And when you enter that one that's 3/4 of a mile long, you can't see the other end. You can't ride your bicycle in there because you get so disoriented you can't. But as you go through this tunnel, you hear water running over your head, some natural springs. It's just wonderful. On that trail, the Sparta-Elroy Trail, is where I'd really want you all to stop and talk to the trail users, people who I think you'd probably agree are some of the cleanest, neatest, most environmentally conscious, and freest spending people you've ever met. You'd want to stop and talk to the shop owners in the towns. And this is what they'd tell you. That they thought their towns were goners when the railroad announced plans to pull out. Because in many of those towns, they had been really dependent on railroad trade, going way back to their earliest histories. What they found, what those store owners, shopkeepers have found out, is that once the trail was in and established and is now used by thousands and thousands of people every year because it's nationally famous, is their business is better than it ever was before. And they frankly have better neighbors than they ever had before because the trail people maintain the trail, maintain the fences better than the railroad ever did. You can stop and talk to the farmers along the way on the Sparta-Elroy Trail. And what the farmers would tell you is that in many cases, many of them opposed the trail when it was initially being constructed. But what they've discovered over the years since then, and it's been like a dozen years now, is they had their fears about what the trail users might have used their property didn't turn out to be reality. The trail users respected the farmers' fence lines, didn't meander where they're not supposed to go, and that also they just met a whole lot of friendly folks out there. And that the conservation commissions which run that trail and which you do the maintenance on it are excellent at keeping the weeds down so that they don't spread into the neighboring farm territories. And you'd find many of those farmers too who have decided over the years that they're not only going to be friendly toward the trail, but they've kind of made their own entrances to it. And they're out there on their bicycles too. That trail is the best testament to what a nature and recreation trail can be like that any I know. You will encounter opposition along the way. I know maybe you have already some, and there probably will be more. And I think you'll find that in most cases it's honest, rational opposition that's coming from people with hearts that are as good as your own. They're not taking this lightly. I picked this up This is a little publication of what's called the Trails Advocate. It's the publication of the Iowa Trails Council, which advocates trail development in Iowa. I want to read a little passage to you here that was written by Tom Neenan, who's the executive director of the Iowa Trails Council and is a good friend of mine, about this matter of opposition. Neenan writes, "Quite often, many of those who oppose the development of a certain trail are often essentially NIMBYs, N-I-M-B-Y-S, which he explains means not in my backyard, who very well may be protesting because they sincerely believe their lives will be adversely affected by the creation of a nearby trail. We respect their right to protest. We have no ill will toward them for their effort to accomplish their goal of preventing the establishment of a trail in their neighborhood. We may sometimes protest their methods and do deplore the use of personal insults that often used. You know how people get in arguments, and it happens even over trails. Our experience has taught us that the fears expressed by adjacent property owners seldom materialize. Trail users are the very best of all those who have respect for natural habitat and the environment. We know that adjacent property owners, more often than not, change from trail opponents to trail supporters and even to trail users once the trail is established. Nature and recreation trails, I truly believe, are one of the most important things that's ever happened in Iowa. They're at least as important as the spread of the railroad was through Iowa 100 years ago. The railroad established these routes connecting our many little towns and served them well over many, many years. And as it's developed in later years that there wasn't as much call for the railroads, they've left us with a tremendous potential asset that we can develop, the trails. Think if we can just dream a minute, that if you can get this trail developed from Lorenz down to Pokey and on to Palmer, you'll truly see thousands of people on it throughout good weather. And when the Iowa winter comes, as we know it always does, you'll see hundreds more out there cross-country skiing on that if you'll allow them. And I don't know, some trails allow snowmobiles and some don't, but that's a possibility. You discover that that trail would become one of the treasures of your county. You'd have something that the surrounding area doesn't really have, or at least you'd have it before they do. You don't have a lot of trails up here in this end of the state yet, and you need to get a piece of the action because it's the hottest action that's coming anywhere. It's not without reason that these trails are being developed all over Iowa right now. They are big business from the standpoint of tourism. The Iowa Trails Council right now and the Iowa Natural Heritage Foundation are working together to produce complete, up-to-the-minute maps and routes of all of our Iowa trails that will be distributed all over the state with handy distribution all over our state for people coming in. And you'll truly find that if you get the trail developed, and that as its reputation spreads, you'll have thousands coming in here like haven't been coming in here to use that railroad. They'll be coming in here, they'll want to eat, they'll want bicycle repairs, they'll want equipment repairs and equipment sales. You'll find whole new businesses can open around them. And the best part of it all is you'll have some great people coming in wanting to discover the three fine small towns that you've got here. You've got postcard towns right here. This is how Iowa small towns are supposed to look. Lorenz, Pocahontas, Palmer. You've got a lot of history in each of these towns that these people would want to stop in and inquire about and learn about. It would be an economic asset to your county that would just boggle your mind. So I tell you again, do it. No matter how hard it seems, keep doing it. You may get the price of this trail negotiated.
Look these over and check out any one that you want. Take a study sheet. Do we have the sign-up slips for tonight too?
I've got them back here. I'll
Okay, we'll
get them cut apart.
So, or do you want me just to pass these around?
However,
In addition, if you do not have your book returned, did anyone leave a book at home that is to go back? Well, Terry said yes at the end of the evening. Okay. You sure the books are in? Is anyone here for the first time and not have a pen? Everybody here has a pen. You do, but you didn't wear it. Okay. We'll have the drawing. We'll have the drawing tonight right before lunch. So whenever we have lunch, you'll know that we're going to have our drawing right at that time. And we will be distributing the slips again, and you know we have to have them filled out in order to get our numbers straight. Okay, tonight we are fortunate to have Robert Sayer from the University of Iowa. He is now writing again. He has a book back here that he has done. He's a student and lover of nature and interested in our nature trail. So I'll introduce him, and Robert Sayer, you may introduce your wife.
Okay. Yeah, my wife Yuka is in back row. I want to thank all of you for the hospitality that we have enjoyed here today. We came up last night to Pocahontas and talked about Kurt Harnack's book, We've All Gone Away. And this morning, Keith and I came into the library and met Pat and Ron Harms. Were so hospitable. Ron took us around and see some of the sights of our town, and had a little fun this afternoon with them. After our little session and not sit around for coffee. Well, we've just had a wonderful day, and I've been so interested in the landscape here. So little is known about it in the rest of the state, really, relative to other parts of the state, like northeast Iowa, where my wife comes from. It really is so interesting, and it's so important, and it's so important that people appreciate a landscape which the mass of Americans today think is flat, and they equate flat with monotony, and monotony with boredom. And they just, it's not, there's nothing wrong with the landscape. The problem is in the eyes of the viewer. They don't know how to appreciate anything but picture, postcard, mountains. Calendar art is sort of the limit of the perception of landscape that most Americans have. And we've got to open their eyes and try to invite them in so that they can begin to see prairies, and they can begin to see dry lake beds, they can begin to see wetlands, they can enjoy the birds, they can understand how many wading birds were once here. Yes. Oh, yeah. I'm sorry. All these things that mean so much to me, and I've been saying them to myself. If you want to come a little closer, too, that would help. I got interested in the Iowa landscape a long time ago when I went out to live in rural Johnson County. I came to the University of Iowa in 1965, and in 1973, having sort of, well, being on the cusp of a divorce, I wanted to get out of Iowa City, and I went to live in a rented house on an old farm. And I enjoyed that so much that a year later, I bought an old farmhouse west of Iowa City and began to cut brush. I mean, it was all I could do to keep the weeds down. I was such a hick, a city hick, that I thought box elders were precious trees. Maybe people here have a better idea of box elders, but in Johnson County, box elders are regarded as weeds. And I can remember still getting so furious when a neighboring farmer cut down a row of box elders where the two of us were to put up a fence. And I still think he was out of order doing that without consulting me first. But I didn't realize that box elders were pretty common. And so I've had a lot to learn in getting to understand or to recognize nature. And I say this with a certain amount of embarrassment because one of my professional interests has been the writing of Henry David Thoreau. I wrote a book on Thoreau and the American Indians. I've edited Thoreau's longer works, Walden, A Week on the Conquered Merrimack Rivers, Cape Cod, and the Maine Woods, for the Library of America series. I recently finished an article on Iowa's great naturalist, Aldo Leopold, which was published in the North Dakota Review. But I feel that there's a larger mission here, and that is not just to talk to scholars, but to talk to other Iowans, and to help people to appreciate not only the natural.
Front! She said front roll! Yeah, I was standing in the front row. Yeah. You weren't standing in the front row, you're in the back. I was in the front. Everybody's going. Oh. Teacher, shut up.
Well, we were going to be at parade there.
My God.
So it's kind of somewhat at the same time.
Yeah. Hey, you have your hair fall off. Hey, I see some hair. You're not a clown.
Let's see.
phone's on top. There's Marie Mather. There's Priscilla. There's Mike Pomeroy. Being a good boy. There's Jade Schramm and Cody Pierce. Mrs. Brown. You mean her teacher aide?
No.
Oh. I was just telling Jeri, just imagine if their class reunions are going to be like this. You know, when they're 30 years old and somebody brings it.
They may not be any good anymore, but then they say they may not last. Yeah, that's why they say you shouldn't dispose of your still shots because they may not last.
Where's the pumpkin, guys? Yes, it is. You can't look. You can't look. This is like wine, isn't it, Rachel? Jeez. According to you. It is. I know it looks like wine. Where's my pumpkin? I see it. And you're wine? To music!
You guys make funny faces to the camera.
I'm bringing juice in just a minute.
Ah, good one.